Let's get into the bucket system for the Travelers Championship. I need to hide some of these columns. We don't need to see some of this information. Basically, I'm going to go bucket by bucket, covering the projections that I have, or the projections that I think. Let me rephrase that. I have projections for each of these buckets for how many golfers I think out of those buckets will finish inside the top 10. And we're going to go bucket by bucket to see what those projections are. What I want you to focus on, and again, if you want to follow along with me, what you could do is go to the cheat sheet located in the description of this video. It's going to look just like this. Go to the bucket system and select the filter up there, filter views, I should say, and go to the bucket system. Once you do that, you're going to put filters on here. That way you can follow along with me while I go through this. So I'll put a filter on mine, and basically what I want you to do, we're going to go, again, bucket by bucket. So we're going to start with the last year buckets. That's the stat over here. Go ahead, drill down on here, clear everything, and go to last year. So we're just talking about the last year buckets right now. And basically what I want you to focus on are the projections that I have here. You're going to see that on your, or on the cheat sheet. I have this column over here that's unique to me. This is more of a beta version, I guess. Like, I just want to see how well this does every single week before I implement it for everyone to see or everyone to use. But basically just focus on these two columns here. Now, in the minimum projection, always round down. Always round down to the whole number. So this 1.69 rounds down to 1. 0.41 rounds down to 0. 2.03 rounds down to 2. And then in the max projection column, you round up to the whole number. So 2.82 goes to 3, 0.68 goes to 1, and then, you know, so forth and so on. But there's also one more rule. If the minimum is 0, the maximum's always 2, no matter what. Unless there's only one golfer in that bucket, which you can see over in this column right here. How many golfers are in that bucket? I have a count right here. So it's always 0 to 2 unless this bucket has one golfer or less. I think it's pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. So the first bucket is the last year bucket. These are golfers who played in the 2022 Travelers Championship. Again, this is the 2023 Travelers Championship. So in 2022, of golfers who finished inside the top 20, how many are we projecting to be inside the top 10 this week? 1 to 3. And that's primarily because, well, first of all, we have 21 golfers in that bucket this week, where we normally see 17. Decent success rate, 13.64%. It's not super high, but this takes into account every single golfer that's ever been in this bucket dating back to 2013. The success rate is how many of that total numbers finish inside the top 10. You might be thinking like, well, that doesn't really help me. Like, you know, 1 year we could add 10. That's where this column over here comes into play. Frequency rate. So dating back to 2013, how many years have we seen at least one golfer from this bucket inside the top 10? And it's 88%. So I'm assuming this is 8 out of 9 years we've seen at least one golfer from this bucket inside the top 10. So this projection of 1 to 3, pretty solid. And then if I wanted to use a more conservative number for max projection, it still rounds up to 3. So let's go ahead and check out the bucket. And again, if you're following along with me, go ahead, put a filter on the dream sheet or the cheat sheet. Again, cheat sheet can be found in the description of this video. We're gonna go into the last year bucket. And by the way, if you're ahead of me, you took a head start, make sure there are no active filters filtering out your golfers. You want it to be completely empty, because when we go ahead and filter by this, you want to be able to see every golfer. So clear everything out and select 1. This is our last year 1. So again, the projection is 1 to 3. That's what I'm projecting to be inside the top 10. Of course, we reviewed the US Open. I showed you how the bucket system did there. 34 to 36 buckets were correct. So I don't see this bucket being any different. 1 to 3 is what I'm projecting to be inside the top 10, which is difficult to stomach because, well, we have 4 10K golfers that could easily finish inside the top 3. The $97 Tony Finau, $8,300 Seth Theegala, and then it drops down to $7,800 and less. Now, just the 10K golfers themselves seem pretty decent, but then you have favorites like Sahith Theegala, Keegan Bradley, and even Harris English. And also Brian Harman. Brian Harman's played well here pretty much every single year. He's got really, really good course history. You're going to have some of these cheap favorites as well, like Michael Thorbjornsen. A lot of people are going to, I should say a lot of people. He's not going to be like, 10% or more owned. He's going to be somewhere around like 4%, 5%. But when you think about putting some of these guys together, like even Ches Reavie has decent course. I mean, he has good course history, 29.75. That's really good. People are going to think about pairing these guys up with some of these at the top. Maybe that's not a good choice. If the projection's 1 to 3, how likely is it 2 of these guys here in the 10K finish inside the top 10? Maybe even 3. It's a good possibility. But if you can make an argument where some of these guys aren't going to finish inside the top 10, like you don't like Xander or Cantlay this week, Xander, your defending champion, by the way, then you can make an argument like, okay, well, then I'm going to go Scotty, and then I'm going to pair him up with Theegala and also Harris English. There we go. I got my 3 golfers. That's my max. That'd be fine. That's fine. If you wanted to do 4, I can see it. I'm not going to, I'm not going to criticize you for going to 4, but don't do 5 and don't do 6. That's kind of what the what would I call it? It's kind of like the consolation of this bucket system is knowing how many not to take, essentially. Don't do all 6. Don't even do 5. 4 is questionable. Stick to 3 and less. And that's how I enjoy that type of thought process, because what it helps me do is narrow down, okay, well, these are already, some of these 10K golfers I was already going to play. All right, now I can be kind of hyper-focused on which 10K golfer do I really want. And basically also with lineup construction, if say Rory and Scotty finish inside the top 10, if Rory at all beats out Scotty, more likely you're going to want to play Rory over Scotty. But the same applies for any of these cheaper 10K golfers. If they finish a little bit better than these guys, then you have to take that into consideration. And I fail to do that every single week, because I'm like, well, it's Scotty, right? It's Scotty all day, every day. Well, we've seen this at the Mexico Open, where Rahm was like 11-8 and then Finau was 10-7. Rahm finished second, Finau finished first. So there are scenarios where stuff like that can happen. I want to say also at the Canadian Open, where Rory finished like 9th place or something like that. He did finish inside the top 10, and there really wasn't any other 10K golfers that were up there, but there was a $9,600 Fleetwood in 2nd place. And then you had an $8,100 Nick Taylor winning the tournament. That made Rory obsolete. Like, starting with Rory lineups weren't going to win you tournaments, like win you GPPs. So again, finish inside the top 10. It's crazy how much even more narrow focus you need to be when it comes to building lineups, that you can't even put, the only 10K golfer to finish inside the top 10. If someone just started with Fleetwood and then, more balanced, they were going to take you, like they were going to beat you in a GPP. So that's always something you got to take into consideration. Now, I don't have my Bentgrass results up, but Scotty Scheffler, believe it or not, in 11 events, 11 events, he has an average finishing position of 5th and hasn't finished worse than 13th on bentgrass golf courses. He also finished 3rd last week at the US Open, which were bentgrass greens. How do you not play like 5th? Average of 5th. Insane. That is insane. What is he like? Yeah, he has the best last year bentgrass stats, which is 1 full year's worth of bentgrass finishes. 5th is his average finishing position. 5th. I don't know. It boggled my mind when I was looking at it. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then, oh, by the way, Pete Dye, he's not so bad either. It is insane. I don't even know. What is his point total over Cantlay, I wonder? when it comes to my model. Oh, he's only 30 points above Cantlay. So there's a good argument to have for Cantlay. You know, 10,200, maybe that's a little cheap, you know, when it comes to building lineups. So anyways, 1 out of 3 is the projection here. Now, I'm not going to go through every single bucket for each stat, but I just want you to understand how to look at it. Because I want you to use the cheat sheet. Come to the cheat sheet. I'm showing you how to use the cheat sheet in the bucket system right now. 1 to 3 last year ones. You can see the other buckets that are underneath. This is how you read these. So the only one that's kind of confusing here is this one, the last year 5 bucket. This says 1 to 2. Remember, you always want a 2-point buffer. And we always round down. We always try to go further down if possible. So because this is 2, this automatically becomes 0. Although it's showing you 1 to 2. Still 0. And the only thing that would actually never mind. I was gonna say the only thing that would actually change my mind is if this number was greater than 2. But that wouldn't change it. It still would be 0. And if this was greater to 2, then it would actually be to 3. So this bucket is actually 0 to 2. And you have 45 golfers in it. So actually, let's just take a look. I'm curious myself. I want to see who's in this bucket. Clear everything except for last year 5. Ricky Fowler, Jason Day, Siwoo Kim, and then Denny McCarthy, who I don't mind playing, and a couple other interesting names. CT Pan, my boy CT Pan is down here. That stinks. I was just about to tout him like crazy once again. I did this during the Canadian Open. Love CT Pan. He missed the cut here last year. I don't mind CT Pan. There are some other good names here. So maybe it's not worthwhile to really focus on any of these guys. Again, the projection is 0 to 2. It's really close to 0 to 3. So if you wanted to maybe pair up a third guy, so be it. I think that's fine. That's crazy though. Okay, in my optimizer, I'm going to keep it at 0 to 2 because I don't even want to tempt myself for grabbing a third golfer. Okay, that's interesting. The only other like main bucket you want to be selecting from is this last year 6 bucket. Now, here's something noteworthy. The projection is 2. We round down with this minimum projection to 4 as we round up for this max projection. But I have this kind of conservative projection over here for our max number, and that's 2.8. This is not over 3. This is less than 3, which means it rounds up to 3. You remember the 2-point gap? I actually use that here, the 2-point buffer. So now what this reads to me is 1 for our minimum projection to 4 for our maximum projection. The reason I have these rules in place are because I've done this long enough. I know that there's enough disparity, you know, enough to worry about that we want to make it 1 to 4. Keep it wide. And that's also to help us do our own research as to which golfers are in this bucket and should we worry. Well, it looks like no, our bucket doesn't start at 9,000. It starts at $10,800 John Rahm. Then we've got Victor at $9,900, $9,500 Colin Morikawa, Fitzpatrick at 9, a slew of 8K golfers, like all of our 8K golfers, and then some pretty noteworthy 7K golfers. So although this says 1 to 4, I'm pretty confident in saying there's going to be 2 to 4 inside the top 10. But let's just keep it 1 to 4 just to, you know, add a little layer to the lack of confidence I guess we have with this bucket. 1 to 4. From I guess all these 7K golfers, by the way. Let's just go from D tree up. And let's just find our weakest golfers. To me, JT seems broken. I'm gonna select him. I also think Cam Young to some extent is broken. He had a pretty decent US Open. Finished 32nd place. That was okay. I want to say Lowry is a good fit. Kim, I don't mind. Scott missed the cut last week, but dude, the guy's been on fire. Like, he's probably one of the best recent form golfers. He's 10th in my model. I'm going to keep him there. Love Russell Henley this week, so do a lot of other people. Corey Connors, I actually really like as well. If you're going to make a pivot from Henley, maybe it's Connors. Really like Minwoo Lee. Don't really care so much for Gary Woodland, but I don't think he's broken. You know, you could probably do worse, really. So I don't mind him. I don't mind Benny Ann. Haven't seen him in a few weeks. Matt Kuchar, I also don't mind playing him. Ludwig, found out how to say his name properly. Ludwig Aberg. 140 you can see in my model. That doesn't mean anything. He's a rookie. He has like no stats to use. The guy's golf swing is money. I think he will be a PGA Tour winner eventually. It could be as soon as the Barbasol Championship. It could be as soon as the Barracuda Championship. The guy, his swing is really good. And if he's not in those and he's in the Open, then so be it. Then he's in the Open. I don't think he's going to win the Open, but I'm digging that guy's golf swing. It's really good. And the rest of these guys, I know there are certain people in this industry that don't like Patrick Rogers, call him a loser. I don't think Patrick Rogers is a loser. He's very good at $7,300, like a good value at $7,300. So is Austin Eckroat, Eric Cole. Like all of these guys are noteworthy. And by the way, Sam Bennett down here, another noteworthy guy. 145th in my model. I should just give him a boost. Both of these guys should get a boost. I'm not too worried about that model score. This bucket will be very difficult to select from. These 6K golfers down here, I'm not too concerned playing any of these guys. We do have Carson Young. Kevin Yu, by the way, don't sleep on that guy. He, I don't know what happened to him. I want to say one of his last events was sometime in the springtime. So I don't know. I think he was an amateur for a while, or I don't know what happened to his amateur status, if I'm being honest, but be on the lookout for him. Vincent Norman, Taylor Penrith, Sam Stevens, lots of good names. Lots of good names. So this bucket's going to be really difficult to choose 1 to 4 golfers from. But yeah, that's how you would look at this bucket system. So let's move on to the next bucket. And that's the last week. So again, go to the stat column here, and we're gonna look at last week buckets. And I'm not gonna look at all of them again. We're just gonna look at the noteworthy ones. Does play in the U.S. Open. By the way, every single year that the Travelers Championship has played, we have the U.S. Open in 2022, 2021 we had the U.S. Open, 2020 we didn't, but that was COVID. 2019 we had the U.S. Open, 2018 we had the U.S. Open. So we can use these last week stats to their true value. So does playing the US Open the week before matter? It would appear so. And it would, well, I should say this. It does and it doesn't. So having a top 20 finish the week before is your best bucket for projections. We have 19 golfers that were in that bucket that are in that bucket this year. We normally see 10, but this is an elevated event, so a lot of people from the U.S. Open are coming to this event. Without the elevated status, it's still a 13% success rate and 80% frequency rate, meaning I'm guessing 8 of the last 10 years we've seen at least one golfer from this bucket inside the top 10. And if that's the case, then yes, you'll want to select golfers from this bucket. But it's an elevated event. We know a lot of the top 20 finishers from the US Open. Nearly 50% of the strength of field points are going towards this bucket. This bucket's going to be star-studded. The only other 2 buckets to really look at are last week 5s, which are missed cuts. So like your Adam Scotts, who didn't perform very well, that missed the cut last week, he's going to be in a bucket where you want at least one guy from. So we'll take a look at that one. And then not playing the week before is also another heavy bucket to select from. Not a high success rate, but a 100% frequency rate. And by the way, haven't seen less than 3 golfers from this bucket inside the top 10 at any given year. Again, this goes back 10 years. So at least 3 every single year we've seen inside the top 10. We'll see if that continues. I mean, we have 14 less than we normally do from that bucket, and not a high strength of field amount of points going towards it. So Let's take a look. Remember, we want to look at our last week bucket and really just the last week one. So make sure there are no other filters that are active. And then we clear everyone out of the last week bucket and just select one. And going back to our summary page or the bucket system, it says 1 to 4. Well, that stinks because 2.99, let's see, does that actually go up to 3? No. 2.99 is actually less than 3. I know. Not by much, but it is. So that means the minimum, it goes down to 1. I mean, this is 1.99, so it's automatically going to go down to 1, but this further proves that it should be 1 to 4 for a projection. So 1 to 4 of the golfers in this bucket are going to finish inside the top 10. Well, we already have a bunch of golfers that we already looked at with the last year one bucket. So Scotty, Rory, Xander, and Cantlay. The bucket that they were in the last year buckets, that was a 2 to 4. So I can say we're probably going to see at least 2 in this bucket, regardless of the minimum projection being 1. So I think 2 is fine. And I think it's, at least one of these guys. One of those 4 10K golfers will be inside the top 10. Now, will they be in the optimal lineup? I don't know. It's possible. It's up to you to decide. And by the way, John Rahm, he was in another bucket where you won at least 1. So, very interesting. This bucket, again, projected 1 to 4. We don't have a lot of golfers in it, but it seems pretty top heavy. Like, it kind of, when we went over the past optimal and GPP winning lineups, we were already talking about just select a 10K golfer and be comfortable with it. Select a 10K golfer and be comfortable with it. I don't think you go wrong with having a 10K golfer in your lineup. I think you have a really good chance to win a league lineup. You have a really good chance to cash. You have a really good chance to win a GPP using one of these 10K golfers. I don't think, I mean, I guess I already said this before, but I think I'm just going to double down and say 100% of my lineups are going to start with a 10K golfer. So I think it's pretty comfortable doing that. Now, whatever one it ends up being, I'm not sure. I'm pointing towards Scotty. And then if it's not Scotty, it feels like it's a Schauffele or Cantlay type of build, which scares me about Rahm. The one person I'm not scared about is Rory. I know a lot of people are going to overlook Rory. This is a short golf course. His, wedges, his irons, yada, 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 don't seem to be as on point. I'm in that same boat. I don't really care for Rory this week. But yeah, Cantlay, Xander, and Scheffler are my top options. Scheffler being my top option, Cantlay being number 2, Xander being number 3, and then Rahm being number 4. But again, this bucket is projected 1 to 4, so maybe you can find someone down here, 1 or 2 people down here that could fill out your lineup pretty well. I'm not sure. I mean, I kind of like Hovland this week. I actually do like Morikawa this week. Fleetwood still seems like a good option. Hard to choose, man. Hard to choose. So I'm going to move on from that bucket. We're not going to talk about the last week 2 bucket, although that's a 0 to 2 projected bucket. A pretty high success rate, by the way. So maybe don't be afraid. Okay, now we got to look. Last week 2s. Who is notable here? Finau, Matsuyama. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to keep it 0 to 2. I don't see anyone like I want to plant my flag with. 0 to 2 last week 3s. We have 0 golfers in that last week 4 bucket. 1 to 3 missed cuts. We have 34 golfers in that bucket where we normally see 25. We have a 90% frequency rate, so that's 9 out of 10 years we've seen at least 1 golfer inside the top 10 from this bucket. With it being this much over and this high of a strength of field, I think we're going to see at least 1. So 1 to 3, that's pretty solid. Let's take a look at our last week 5s. Again, missed cuts and withdraws, but there were no withdraws. Starts with Max Homa, pass. Justin Thomas, pass. I don't mind Sung Jae. And then we have Jason Day, which questionable. I don't mind. And then we jump into the 7K range with Adam Scott, Keegan Bradley, Corey Connors. One of these guys I think will be in the optimal lineup. I'm not sure which one it's going to be, but I had to do more analysis with these three golfers, but just by them being right next to each other in the salaries, being in a bucket that I'm projecting to have at least one golfer in, I think these three are my strongest candidates. We have other good golfers. Kuchar's a pretty good Pete Dye golfer. Davis is just talented. So too is Seamus Power, KH Lee. Don't mind those guys. And then it just kind of just drops, and I don't really have any feelings for a lot of these guys. But yeah, the projection for this bucket's 1 to 3, and I think that's solid. That's a solid projection. Again, I think it's one of these three guys, and then you just have to make your decision with the rest of them. I mean, you've got some really cheap golfers down here that can fill out your lineup, but wouldn't have that much confidence playing. And the last bucket we want to look at out of this one is the last week's sixes. Those are golfers who did not play last week. So let's see, who are our best options? I bet you my favorite CT Pan, most likely. So the top of the salary leaderboard is Byung Hanan and Steven Yeager. But now that I see some of these names, Ludwig Aberg, one of my favorites. Aaron Rye's not terrible. I like Dietrich. Don't mind Wu. There's my boy CT Pan. I could go back to CT Pan, no problem. Then yeah, it's kind of just wishy-washy from there, honestly. So the projection's 1 to 3. We could easily just see one golfer from this bucket. I can make the argument for 3. I like Kevin Yu. Seems like I know he's a talented golfer. I have no other basis than just saying he's a talented golfer. That's why I like him. Smotherman seems like a good choice on this golf course. Ben Griffin is talented enough. I have no issue going to him. Yeah, I see, like, this whole range here, besides Ches Reavie, I'm not extremely confident in. Harry Hall still has a pretty good bent grass profile. 25% success rate, finishing top 10 at bent grass golf courses. I don't know. Probably not. Yeah, I don't know what to do with a lot of this. I mean, Webb at one point in time was good. Last time he went to tee it up, I think at Canadian Open, he withdrew because of illness. I wonder what's going on with Webb. I wonder if there's like a autoimmune disorder or something that has been plaguing him. There's a reason Paul Desori left him to go on Cam Young's bag. There's a reason we haven't seen Webb Simpson really play except for what, the RSM Classic? I don't remember the last time he played. I'm sure I have it in my recent form page. $6,800. Weber. Byron Nelson. And the Mexico Open. Okay, so he has played. Good to know. It just doesn't seem like I have seen him in a long time. Anyways. Yeah, 1 to 3 from this bucket. So, interesting names, by the way. Interesting names. Let's move on to the next bucket. Course history bucket. We do have course history this week. We have been on this golf course for a very long time. It goes back to where my data begins in 2013. So, it goes even back further than that, I should say. Does course history matter at this golf course? Having the best course history has a pretty high success rate, 15%, but not a very high frequency rate, 62%. The projection here is 0 to 2. There are only 5 golfers in that bucket, where we normally see around 10. So just to give you a heads up of who the best course history guys are at this event. Again, if you're following along with me, just make sure all the filters are removed. Clear everything and just select one for course history. It is Rory McIlroy, Adam Scott, Lucas Herbert, Michael Thorbjornsen, and Nick Hardy. Now, it looks like Hardy and Thorbjornsen have played this only one time before. I imagine so too as Lucas Herbert. It'd be hard to I don't think Adam Scott has only played this one time. I gotta look. Scott. He's only played it once. Since 2013, he's only played it once. How crazy is that? So him and Herbert. Let me just double check on Herbert. This is my course history page, by the way, that I don't really show off all that much. Yeah, Lucas Herbert's also only played it once. So every golfer except for one in this bucket, and that's Rory, has only played this event one time since 2013, including Adam Scott, who is 42 years old. Again, goes back to 2013, but he has a 13th place finish, so seems like he's pretty decent fit for this golf course. The projection's 0-2. Truly, it's 0-1, but again, we always have a 2-point buffer. 0-2. If you're making Rory lineups, I don't think you include any of these guys. Likewise, well, I shouldn't even say likewise. You're most likely not going to be creating Adam Scott lineups where Rory gets included, or one of these three guys gets included. I think what I'm going to do with this projection when it comes to me building lineups, because here's the thing. There's 156 golfers in this field. If you make a rule that says you're only going to play one, up to the max of one guy from this this bucket, I think you let that burn you. If McIlroy and Scott end up in the optimal lineup, the odds of that happening are going to be extremely low. And I'm okay if that burns me, honestly. So I'm going to make a rule in my optimizer for myself. I'm only going to select up to one of these guys. I don't want more than one, just one at most. So that's what I would encourage you guys to do as well. Moving on from there, course history 2s. 1-3 is the projected there. We have 21 golfers in that bucket where we normally see 21, so it's pretty good. 100% frequency rate. I've seen at least one golfer dating back to, I think course history goes back to 2015, being inside the top 10, at least one. 100% frequency rate. And success rate's pretty high, by the way. So a lot of people out there saying course history is sticky at this event. I would agree. Stats would bear it out. Xander and Cantlay. We already talked about them. They were in buckets that I kind of wanted to choose already. Like, I wanted to choose them from already. Then we have Hovland, Fleetwood, Sung Jae, which we talked about being in the miscut buckets. So too is Jason Day. And then it drops down to our 7K golfers. So the projection here was 1-3. Hard not making the argument for either Cantlay or Xander. But there are also really good names. Remember I said, was it Bradley, Scott, and English in one of the buckets we were looking at? Was it the last year one buckets? One of those guys will probably be in the optimal. So I could see myself creating some Xander and Cantlay lineups paired up with Keegan and or English. Or maybe just an or statement. Maybe it's Xander or Cantlay and then Bradley or English. I think that's how I'd probably write out that argument. Yeah, we'll see. That's kind of what it's shaping out to be, and I don't mind that. Okay. I'm liking it the more I'm looking at it. So anyways, 1-3 is a projection here. Then we have 1-4 for course history 3s. This is the next best course history bucket when it comes to average finishing position. And now we get Scheffler and Rahm. So the last bucket was 1-3 for the projection. Well, what if it's English and or one of those other 7K golfers like Russell Henley? I forgot the other 7K golfer we were talking about. Short-term memory is bad. Anyways, yeah, it could be something like that, where you only select one, or you select two of those 7K golfers we were talking about, and then you pair them up with one of these 10K golfers. Remember, the projection here is 1-4. And that makes life easy, because it's these two 10K golfers. Then are you going to play Finau? I don't want to play Finau. I'm not going to... Personally, I just don't want to play Finau until he just changes his... Oh, I hate that putting stroke. I hate just watching him putt. I do not like it. The toe up, it's gross. It's gross to look at. Don't want to see it. It's dumb. And then JT's broken. I'm going to keep saying that until he's fixed, by the way. So if someone wants to be like, yeah, everyone's going to say he's broken. Well, he is broken. He's broken until he's fixed. So I don't care to be early on Justin Thomas. And then you got Sith Theegala. which, hey, I don't mind playing Sith or even Siwoo. I think these are great choices. The projection's 1-4, by the way. So like these two seems pretty solid. And then maybe one of these two, that's also pretty solid. And then we got to make like, we could put up to 3 guys from this bucket in our lineups. I like Eckroat. I don't mind Rogers. I like CT Pan. And then I don't care. So this is kind of interesting. Like okay, hold on. So I could do like a CT Pan. How about Sith Theegala, Scotty Scheffler? 10, 8, 7. And then we go back to the course history 2s. 10, 8, 7. And then, yeah, it was Bradley in English. There you go, 78, 77. So I'm going to include these together. So we go, I'm just going to go with Scheffler, 11,300. Seems pretty solid. And I drop down to Theegala, 83. And then Bradley or Henley, I think that's fine. English. My boy where's my boy CT Pan? Come on, CT. I could probably put Eckroat in CT Pan. It's 49,400. I could do something like that. Pretty easy. 10, 8, 7, 7, 7, 7. That's not making your 2 substitutions. Actually, it is. No, you're not. No, we're not. That's not making our 2 substitutions. Who's our 9K golfer here? Anybody? Hovland or Finau or Fleetwood? Okay. Decisions. Tough. We'll figure it out tomorrow on the strategy video. I'm not gonna waste you guys' time here. Let's see. What's the next bucket to look at? There are none. Everything else is 0 to 2 out of the course history buckets. So, yeah. Okay. Nope. We're not gonna look. I'm gonna clear out all the buckets. That means selecting everything, not filtering out anything, and going right to our recent form buckets. So, 0 to 2 for recent form 1. That's the golfers with the best recent form, by the way, which I'm pretty sure you can already figure out who those guys are. We can go ahead and filter out recent form 1. Scheffler, McIlroy, Xander, Cantlay, Hovland, and Gim. Guess what? 0 to 2 is the projection. We already know we like Cantlay. We already know we like Schauffele. We already know we like Scheffler. We could also make the argument of liking McIlroy, but we already kind of made the decision we're not going to. So with 0 to 2, Scheffler, Schauffele, Cantlay. 2 of those guys could finish inside the top 10. No problem. And I think this solidifies my decision that I already talked about earlier on. It's either Scheffler or Schauffele or Cantlay. I think I know. I know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to speak out loud because I can't tell you where I'm going to put all my contest selections. But when I build lineups tomorrow, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, the live video, I will give a little bit more information as to where I'm going with my lineup builds. But they are going to include these 3 guys in one way or another. Recent form 2s. 1 to 3 is a projection here. There's a lot of golfers in this bucket. More than we see in any other year for this event. Rahm, Fleetwood, Wyndham Clark, Ricky Fowler. I wanted to see where CT Pan was. If CT Pan was here, it's going to be hard. I'm going to be hard pressed not to select CT Pan once again. But then there's Harris English and Russell Henley. There's also Adam Scott, Siwoo Kim. These are all names I've already mentioned that I like. I kind of have the idea of putting Fleetwood with Scheffler. That's kind of where I'm leaning. And I might even just, like I'd mentioned Theegala earlier. I might just remove Theegala and go Fleetwood here. Yeah, I could do that. That seems like a pretty solid choice. But there are, I just highlighted 5 guys that I like. The projection's 1 to 3. 1 to 3 from that bucket. Moving on to the next one. This is 2 to 4, but really it's 1 to 4 because of our conservative projection over here. So 1 to 4 recent form 3s. And we got $9,700. Tony Finau leads the way. So 1 to 4 from this bucket. I don't like anyone that I see already. I mean, I like Colin Morikawa this week. I don't like Finau, but now that he shows up in another bucket that is worthwhile, I kind of want to. I do like Bradley. I do like Connors. Those are 2 names. Then there's Patrick Rodgers. That kind of gives me a little relief because I could select Rodgers from the other buckets that I was just doing. I was just looking at. This gives us our number here. That's 4 golfers there. So it could be... Oh, and then there's Sahith Theegala. So maybe I don't remove Fleetwood. Or maybe I go Cantlay into Theegala. Or Cantlay into Fleetwood into Theegala. Or Cantlay into Morikawa into Theegala. And I still can play all this. Oh my gosh. So many choices. Recent form 4s. This projection is 0 to 2. So too are the other 2. So we're not going to talk about those guys or golfers in these buckets. I'll leave that up to your own research. I'm going to move on to the salaries now, or the salary buckets. We kind of already mentioned this type of thought process when it came to the pass optimal and GPP winning lineups. That segment of the preview video. But let's see what it actually shakes down. And this is really interesting. So the projection is 0 to 2. Normally when we see tournaments that actually provide a 10K golfer inside the top 10, the projections usually line up with it. Like there's 1 to 3 that you want to choose. Sometimes there are only 4 10K golfers and the projections will be like, oh, you want, 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. It's like, how could it be 1 to, there's only 4. This week there's 5. And the projection's still only, it's less than 2 when it comes to, well, I mean, it's, the max projection is 2. And the min technically is 1.02, which would round down to 1, but it's 0 because we want that 2-point buffer between max and min. So that's super interesting. In fact, we can just take a look at the salary leaderboard here. Make sure there are no filters. Select everybody and sort top to bottom for salaries. 0 to 2. You know what? I could see like Scheffler and Schauffele or Cantlay. I've already mentioned those guys. Like I want to play them. Everything is kind of pointing like they seem like good plays. I don't want to ignore Rahm, but I don't care to ignore McIlroy. Like that's fine. I can play McIlroy in one lineup, and it could be a winner take all that gets me my entry fees back. That's where I would play McIlroy. In all reality, I also have Rahm in my Rainmakers. I'm cool with just having Rahm there. I don't need to put him into, a DFS lineup. I could just stick with Scheffler, Schauffele, or Cantlay and go from there. There's so many good lineup builds that start with those guys and use the other buckets perfectly, harmoniously. So I think I'll probably do that. So yeah, 0 to 2 seems pretty solid. 9Ks is also 0 to 2, which does not make me feel super comfortable because there are a lot of good 9K golfers, but also kind of up in the air. Can Ricky come back from his disappointing US Open? By the way, he finished what, 3rd, 4th? What was it? Muller finished 5th. Yikes. Still a good showing. Was leading it for a while. Wyndham Clark is your US Open champion. Can he provide a good finish after winning the US Open? Who knows? But, like Fitzpatrick, Fleetwood, Morikawa, Hovland, I like those guys. I can't play Tony Finau, but he's also a decent play as well. So those golfers right there are pretty decent to select from. 0 to 2 is that projection as well. Going into the 8K range, it's 0 to 2 here as well. Not super trustworthy names. Homa's been kind of on a downward slide. So too has Thomas. Sungjae Im has missed more cuts than usual. Matsuyama didn't have a terrible showing at the US Open, but it wasn't great. Cam Young seems on the slide. Jason Day has his injury issues. Seth Theegala, I like. Shane Lowry, I think is, well, I was just saying, I think is a good course fit, but look at this course history over here, 72.5. That's not super great. Not super great on bent grass either. Okay, so that kind of, is he good on Pete Dye? He is. He actually has really good Pete Dye stats. 23% top 10 success rate. Pretty good. Tom Kim also does have good Pete Dye stats. So what is this? This 8K range is like Kim, Theegala, and Siwoo. And I guess Shane Lowry, that's fine. The bottom 8K range. Yikes. 7K range, 1 to 4. Pretty solid. And then 6K range is usually, these are higher projections than we normally see. 0 to 2 and 0 to 2, but this is usually like 0 to 1. And it's not even close. It's like really bad success rate, like less than 2%. And then not a super high frequency rate most of the time. But this is pretty good. This is kind of showing that you kind of want 6K golfers this week. And we're not going to go through the 6K golfers. But just to touch up on those 7K golfers, 1 to 4 is the projection. I already like Scott. I like Bradley. I like Henley. I like Connors. I like English. I don't mind Minwoo. I like McCarthy. I don't mind Harmon, Benny Ann. I like Ludwig. I could go back to Davis. I like Rogers. I like Eckroat. Eric Cole. I don't know. I could go back to Emiliano Grillo. Grillo, I should say. I like Dietrich. I could go back to Schenk. No problem. And then obviously I've been wanting to get down here so I can click CT Pan's name. Really like CT Pan once again. And then there's Sam Bennett, by the way. 7,000. So I just highlighted 18 7K golfers. Is that correct? 18? Yeah, I selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 18. 18 7K golfers. I need to select 4. So that's where the optimizer comes into play, which I will be using live tomorrow in my strategy video at 8 p.m. So be on the lookout for that. One last bucket to look at, and those are our strokes gain buckets. So if you're unfamiliar with how I do this, check the description of this video out. There's a link down there for the bucket system. I explain what the strokes gain buckets are in great detail. So go check that out. But basically, if you're following along with me on the cheat sheet, all you want to do is first sort by salaries Z to A, and then strokes gained A to Z. You can see they're all color coordinated. Easy for us to use. I have 1 to 3 strokes gained 1 golfers projected to be inside the top 10. That's all the golfers here highlighted in this dark green color. We've went through some of these guys. Like, we really like Schauffele and Xander. Oh, Schauffele's out. Jesus. Schauffele and Cantlay. Xander and Patrick. Cantlay and Xander. Whatever. However, I like these two guys. I also don't mind Fleetwood. And then when I scroll down, I don't like really anyone else except for Rogers, Dietrich, and CT Pan. So this is a 1 to 3. Was that right? Yeah, 1 to 3. 1 to 3 projection. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, hey, I don't mind playing someone like Sung Jae Im. I don't mind playing someone like Jason Day. I also, like, I already made my case for Rory and John Rahm when it came to the salary buckets. But this kind of gives me more gravity playing someone like Xander and Patrick, or Patrick, I guess. I could do both of them. Like, we play both of them. That'd be simple, or that'd be pretty easy. But man, CT Pan's just been too good to me this year so far. I gotta keep rolling with him. The next bucket is the strokes gained 2s. That's a 0 to 2, despite it saying 1 to 2. So 0 to 2 here. Starts with Hovland. We have Hovland, Scott, Bradley, Minwoo Lee. A lot of good names, by the way. 0 to 2. So that kind of pumps the brakes for me on playing multiples of these guys. So, like, I do like Adam Scott this week. I also like Keegan Bradley. If I'm playing both of those guys, I'm not including anyone underneath them. And that doesn't make me feel all that comfortable. I really like Ludwig Aberg this week. I also really like Austin Eckroat. Sam Bennett's down here, like him. Svensson. I could get back to Svensson. Adam Schenk. There's a lot of good names here. So 0 to 2 doesn't, it kind of, what this does is removes confidence in playing Adam Scott and or Keegan Bradley. Really. I mean, I'll still play him, but now it doesn't really give me like ultimate conviction like those have to be anchor plays. I have to play those guys because I could play any of these guys pretty easily. Next bucket, strokes gained 3, 1 to 3 here as well. And this one's going to be headed by Scotty Scheffler. Scheffler, Morikawa, JT. Yeah, so we already have a bunch of notable names. Rick Connors is up there. Russell Henley. Again, the projection's 1 to 3. So how many do you actually see finishing inside the top 10? You know, I really like Scheffler. I like Morikawa. And if I pair those guys up together, I get one more guy out of this range. And by the way, I don't really like anyone else. I'll highlight all the guys that I do like. Siwoo, Henley, Connors. Do I have a lot of conviction in those guys? No. But I wouldn't mind playing any of them. Benny N, Cam Davis. Really question marks with these two guys, but I like them. And then I don't really care. Then we get into our 6K range. A ton of 6K golfers. Carl Yuan down here, don't mind that. Kevin Yu also, haven't seen him in a while. So those are guys that I'm kind of considering. Same with Austin Smotherman. So yeah, I guess it kind of puts a roadblock up for me wanting to start Scheffler and Morikawa. I think if I'm choosing one of those guys, I'm not choosing the other. I might do it in one lineup just to have it in one lineup, but if you have convictions playing Morikawa, maybe you don't add them with Scotty Scheffler, and instead you can just use the rest of the golfers down here to fill in your lineups. I think that's a possibility. Moving on, going to our strokes gained 4 bucket. This one's a 1 to. Is this a 3 or a 2? It's a 2. Interesting. So technically this bucket would be a 0 to 2. And even our conservative projection isn't even giving us a green light here to do more. I might squeak that to 0 to 3. I might slide it 0 to 3. And mostly because there's too many good names here. Thigala, English, McCarthy. Those are names in themselves. I don't mind playing. Putnam, Brendan Todd, Eric Cole, I guess. Hubbard, Hughes. Hughes has played well here before. Griffin's a great talent. Does he? I don't think he's even played here. He has not. Okay, interesting. Maybe we pump the brakes on Ben Griffin. Chesson Hadley finished 5th. Oh yeah, not good course history otherwise. So yeah, maybe 0 to 2 is a good number because it's like these 3 guys and then what, right? I don't know. I don't see anybody that I really like. Okay, I'm cool with that. 0 to 2 is fine. I think that's what I'll keep it on my optimizer. If you get the optimizer, if you don't agree, just move it to 0 to 3. Strokes gained 5, 0 to 2. Strokes gained 6, 0 to 2. Just to go over those really quickly. Matsuyama, Hoagie. This is a 0 to 2 bucket. Do you see any of these other guys? Yeah, if you took these 2 versus the field in the strokes gained 5 bucket, which side are you choosing? I'm most likely choosing this side. 0 to 2, huh? Hoagie doesn't have any good finishes. Matsuyama really hasn't played here before. Interesting. Okay. I don't even know what to make of that. And the strokes gained 6, you could probably just ignore. Yama really has not played here at all in the last 10 years. So crazy. Where you at, Matsuyama? Yeah, I don't even have his name. Is it under Hideki maybe by mistake? Nope. Holy moly. So Hideki's never played here. Okay, that's weird. That is cause for concern. Anyways, that is going to wrap up the bucket system. My convictions after going through the bucket system is Scotty. I'm either starting Scotty, Xander, or Patrick Cantlay. And then from there, it depends because Victor Hovland and Finau were in some good buckets, but I'm just going to ignore them. Morikawa and Fleetwood were the only other 9K golfers that I actually liked. Again, Hovland and Finau were in some good buckets. But it seems likely that the best way to start would be one of these two 10K golfers to go with one of these two 9K golfers and go from there. I didn't mind Sung Jae being in some of these buckets for 8Ks. Thigala was there as well. And then I really didn't care for any of the other 8K golfers. Like let me back up. Siwoo Kim seems like a pretty good choice. I actually really like Siwoo this week. And I guess I don't mind going back to Tom Kim. So it's those 4 8K golfers. So if you want to start 10-9-8, Xander or Cantlay in your 10K spot, Morikawa or Fleetwood in your 9K spot, Thigala, Kim, Siwoo in your 8K spot. Was I even saying that correctly? 10K spot, 9K spot, 8K spot. Yeah. And then there's a good group of 7K golfers. So that's kind of how I see it. First look, first feels on a Monday night after going over the bucket system.